Antoinette Sayeh of Liberia recently took the helm of IMF's African department. As the world's finance ministers and central bank governors prepare to meet in Washington, Sayeh talks about her priorities for the IMF's work in Africa.
Africa is coming out of a very strong period of performance since 2005, 1995 to 2007. We saw growth, an average of 5% in African countries, underpinned by very good policies in most countries. Africa now has to preserve that achievement as a basis for making progress towards the MDGs.
As the former finance minister of Liberia, which recently emerged from civil war, Sayeh has particular expertise in post-conflict countries.
In the case of fragile states with very limited capacity, the fund has a very big role to play in providing technical assistance and advice to help countries tackle long-term reconstruction challenges. So how the fund works with the governments and other partners to accelerate growth and the resumption of private sector-based activities is extremely important. And of course, the whole inheritance of debt that many fragile countries have, a more coordinated way of dealing with the challenges of clearing arrears, long-standing arrears, and getting access to debt relief is also an important challenge.
Many countries in Africa see the lack of adequate infrastructure as a key impediment to progress.
We agree with countries that it is important to find ways of financing infrastructure. It's a serious and very important constraint to accelerating growth in many African countries. We welcome new partners and new aid providers such as China.
African countries face the challenge of financing new infrastructure while taking care not to build up more debt than they can manage.
We want to work with African countries and China and other new providers of aid to make sure that the financing made available to African countries is concessional by and large and helps all of us to protect the gains we've made under the HIPC process in dealing with the unsustainable debt that most African countries faced. And so we want to look on a case-by-case basis on how particular infrastructure projects support growth and the link to the overall macro framework, and to make sure that financing for those projects is sustainable.
The IMF World Bank annual meetings serve as a forum for the world's economic and financial leaders to meet and discuss a broad range of issues.
I'm very much looking forward to my first annual meetings as director of the African department, and I'll be on the other side this time, and so I certainly understand many of the concerns that our African governors will be bringing to the table when we meet. I think first and foremost on their minds will be the impact of the fuel and food crisis, and how they've responded to that, and how the fund has helped them to respond. There will be some countries with which we discuss possible additional financing that may be possible from the fund and that we can look at. And there will be other countries where we talk about just the advice that we can give countries in managing their own response to the crisis.
The annual meetings also serve as an opportunity to review the IMF's major policy instruments and discuss how they may be reformed to reflect changing global circumstances.
We want to also talk about how we're positioning the fund to respond to the needs of fragile states. We were just talking about that as well. How we're looking at the reform of different instruments to help countries deal with various shocks. So a big agenda, I think, for the annual meetings, and I'm looking forward to that.